Hi, I'm Mark Leiren-Young. I'm running for Saanich Council and CRD. And before deciding to run, one of the things I really wanted to do was to watch all the all candidates meetings from 2018. And at one of those all candidates meetings, a parent who's got a student at the school talked about how scary it was to drop her kid off at 8:20 every morning. She talked about the hell of dropping her kid off, of worrying, that all of the parents worrying that one day one of their kids was going to be hit by a car because of all of the traffic. And she hoped that maybe council could put in a light or improve the parking lot, do something. And that was the moment I knew I wanted to run. Because just after I graduated from the University of Victoria, I moved to Williams Lake, where I covered school board and council. And I always thought the single best thing I did while I was there was write a story about a school just like this that really needed a left turn lane. And I wrote about it here. Right after I wrote the slum housing feature, I started getting restless. Everything seemed boring. I even dropped by the high school to see if they had any news. I covered the education beat, but beyond writing up school board meetings, there never seemed to be much to say. The principal told me his big worry was overcrowding. The school was built for 600 and was handling close to 700. They expected more students next year. What this region needs, he said, is another high school. The board keeps hemming and hawing about how much we need one, but they never seem to do anything about it. I nodded sympathetically and thought, probably because it's too boring. That night I went for pizza with Kate and scared the locals by ordering beef, mushrooms, feta cheese, and pineapple. The fetas for Greek salads, the waitress told me. We'd had this conversation before. It's good on pizza too. She stared at me like I was crazy and went to tell the chef about my sacrilegious request. I don't know what's wrong, I told Kate. You've written your big story, she said. You put your heart into the slum housing feature and you're never going to top it. You're ready to go. I'd been ready to go since I got there. And I wasn't sure it was writing the story that burned me out. I think what really bothered me was how little it had accomplished. Maybe I'd seen too many episodes of Lou Grant, but I'd really thought my features were going to help people. I thought that if you gave people the facts and told the story properly, you could change the world, or at least a little corner of it. That's why the story about the bus route to the Elmdale Trailer Court meant so much to me. It wasn't a big deal in the grand scheme of things. I didn't end racial discrimination or bring master criminals to justice, but it was a slow news day. The kind of day that meant the paper was going to be full of city council briefs, rewritten press releases, and follow-ups to the previous paper's top stories. There was nothing exciting, nothing urgent, so Abby suggested I drive to the Elmdale Trailer Court. I'd written a short item about it once. The parents living there had complained to the school board because the school bus wouldn't stop there, so their kids had to cross the highway twice a day to get on and off the bus. The board told them nothing could be done, and that was the end of the story. It never occurred to me to follow it up, but Abby suggested it was worth a visit. I didn't believe her, but it sure beat shuffling files and trying to look busy. So off I went to meet Melissa Hall. She was in her early 20s, and her son Adrian had to walk by the bus stop every morning. It made Melissa nervous. That sounded like a typical mom worry to me, certainly not news. But Melissa phoned a few other anxious moms, and 15 minutes later, 6 of us were walking the route that the 17 children who lived in the trailer court walked twice each weekday. After we left the lot, we reached Highway 97, the major logging route. As we walked along the shoulder, a full logging truck barreled past us, and the road shuddered. There are lots of those when school gets out, said Melissa. The trucks are all going up empty when the kids are walking to the bus in the morning, and they're coming back full when the kids get home from school. We continued our march along the shoulder for about half a mile until it was time to cross the road. There was no crosswalk, just a clear stretch of highway, far enough from the hill that you could sort of see what was coming. The other day a little boy slipped on a patch of ice. A truck was coming, said Melissa, but he got up in time. There was silence as each mother pictured her child on the highway, imagined a logging truck hitting a patch of ice. As we walked back to the trailers, the mothers shared their horror stories, their nightmares. They told me about the school board bureaucrats' claim that a left turn lane would have to be set up, and that would take time, money, and worst of all, paperwork. So I went back to the Trib and wrote the mother's story in the most impassioned prose I could. Eric ran it on page 1. Like I said, it was a slow news day. I also wrote a column for the editorial page about the danger their children faced. I wanted the people who read that column to imagine their child standing on the shoulder of the icy highway next to a speeding logging truck. The next day I talked to someone at the Highways Ministry who assured me the bureaucrats were wrong and the special left turn lane was unnecessary. That ended up on page 1 too, the morning of the bi-monthly school board meeting. As soon as I walked into the school board offices to cover the meeting, I broke into the biggest grin I'd had during my entire stay in the Caribou. This place was packed tighter than that proverbial barrel full of hogs people in the Caribou love to talk about. "Hey," a voice behind me said. It was Steve, the radio reporter. "I think someone read your story." An average school board meeting was considered well attended if there were 3 observers, including me and Steve. But that night, the gallery was full, and so was the hallway. The back door was open so everyone could breathe. Steve and I could barely squeeze through to our media table, and when we got there, all the seats were taken by angry parents. Other parents were sitting on the table. I was happy to stand. The trustees scowled at me. One managed a grimace and whispered, "I guess we have you to thank for this." The board quickly declared a new first order of business. "Is there any reason we shouldn't have the school bus stop at the Elmdale Trailer Court?" one trustee asked nervously. The bureaucrat in charge of bus routes valiantly attempted to explain his position to the angry parents, the angry voters. He explained that a bus driver tried to turn there, but there were so many logging trucks barreling down the highway, she didn't think it was safe. So the bus driver didn't think it was safe to turn on the road that the board was making little kids cross twice a day, 5 times a week. As the crowd started transforming into a mob, one of the trustees avoided a lynching by suggesting a vote. Melissa and a few of the other moms stopped to thank me as they filed out. The bus began turning into Elmdale the following Monday, and for one brief moment, I felt like the Lone Ranger.
Save one vote for Mark Leiren-Young, Saanich.